Close your eyes for a second and picture this. Colors are swirling all over. Fonts are quite trippy. And the electric energy of the late 60s and 70s are before you. Now imagine rock legends like Jimi Hendrix, the Rolling Stones, and The Who, framed in vibrant, mind-bending posters that defined that era. Now what about these posters? They came from one man, David Edward Byrd. He wasn't just an artist. He was the visual architect of a revolution. David was the man who gave rock, and even Broadway, their most unforgettable look. He turned music into a feast for the eyes. Welcome to That's Life, I swear. This podcast is about life's happenings in this world that conjure up such words as intriguing, frightening, life-changing, inspiring, and more. I'm Rick Barron, your host. That said, here's the rest of this story. Legendary poster artist David Edward Byrd died at the age of 83. The creative force behind memorable artwork for Broadway productions, including Godspell, Follies, Jesus Christ Superstar, and The Little Shop of Horrors, passed away due to pneumonia on February 3, 2025, in Albuquerque, New Mexico. What follows is a snapshot of David's life. Born in Cleveland, Tennessee, on April 4, 1941, David relocated to New York City after completing both his bachelor's and master's degrees in fine arts at Carnegie Mellon University during the 1960s, determined to establish himself in the art world. In 1967, David joined Fantasy Unlimited. It was a curious blend of hippie communities and entrepreneurial venture based on a farm in Port Jervis, New York. This collective group of young artists specialized in creating elaborate multimedia light shows featuring pulsating colors, handcrafted animations, bubbles, and strobe effects for dance events and corporate functions. Despite his classical training at Carnegie, where he earned his Master's of Fine Arts, David studied masters like Garavagino, Gauguin, and Bacon because he was drawn to their unconventional artistic path. Around this time, another Carnegie graduate, Joshua White, had established a celebrated light show collective of his own. In early 1968, White convinced influential promoter Bill Graham to hire David for poster design at Graham's newly opened Fillmore East venue in New York City. The assignment was to create promotional material for an upcoming performance featuring the Joshua Light Show, alongside musical acts like Traffic, Iron Butterfly, and Blue Cheer. Though David had no previous experience with concert poster design, he approached the task with a clear philosophy. He believed a good poster should be calling to you across the street, sort of like punching you in the face. The poster that he created greatly impressed Graham, who continued commissioning David's work until the Fillmore's East closure in 1971. This initial success launched David into a prolific career spanning the subsequent decade. His diverse and luminous artistic output encompassing rock concert promotions, such as Broadway show materials, book jackets, and album covers, would ultimately help define the visual aesthetic of a generation. Within this striking design lay calculated artistic choices. In his 2023 book collaboration with Robert Von Goben titled Poster Child, David revealed the intentional science behind his work. The deliberately clashing color combinations were engineered to create visual disruption, producing a strobe-like effect, if you will. As he described it, your rods and cones struggle to identify the colors, creating a vibrating sensation in your retina, yet your brain persists in trying to isolate a single color. Perhaps David's most iconic creation was his 1968 poster for the Jimi Hendrix Experience. In this remarkable work, he reimagined Hendrix's signature afro as an intricate mosaic of tiny, vibrant circles, each painstakingly hand-drawn using a drop bow compass that seamlessly blended into his bandmate's hair. Today, those original posters grace distinguished institutions, including MoMA and the Louvre, with some commanding up to $12,000 in online auctions. Ironically, David himself had to purchase one of his own creations later in life. You see, he viewed posters as temporary objects, designed to be torn down or covered once their purpose was served. Now, his remarkable talent lay in transforming the temporary into the timeless. When asked to create a poster for a 1969 event called the Aquarian Exposition, David drew immediate inspiration from the French academic tradition. Specifically, he referenced Auguste Dominique Ingres' 1856 work, La Source, which depicts a naked female figure holding a water vessel. Though David developed a design based on this classical image, fate intervened. The festival, which would later become famous as Woodstock, had to change venues, and organizers couldn't reach David, who was traveling abroad for necessary revisions. So consequently, his artwork was never used. What distinguished David was his remarkable creative efficiency and unwavering commitment. He conceived complex artistic concepts rapidly, embraced them wholeheartedly, and pursued their execution with determination. Joshua White noted David's exceptional work ethic. I never saw him sitting there muttering, "What am I going to do? What am I going to do?" Unlike many contemporaries, David rejected the notion that commercial projects compromise artistic integrity. David left his most indelible impressions on Broadway, designing some of the theater's most influential and best remembered posters and logos. When David designed a poster for the Broadway show Follies in 1971, he created something very revolutionary. His image featured a showgirl, represented as a fractured marble sculpture, with the production's title bursting from her spectacular but subtle psychedelic headpiece. According to renowned Broadway poster designer Frank Ferlizio, this creation transformed perceptions of theater posters as artistic expressions. Previously, most consisted merely of a celebrity photograph paired with stylized lettering. Following this breakthrough, David continued his innovation with another influential design for Godspell. Though David found creating for Broadway invigorating, he acknowledged to Playbill that it demanded more intensive preparation than his rock concert work. With rock posters, I could draw virtually anything, even something as bizarre as ducks consuming a lizard, as long as it had psychedelic appeal. The specific imagery wasn't crucial, he explained. Theater posters, however, require actual script analysis. For the stage, Byrd additionally designed posters for Little Shop of Horrors, The Robber Bridegroom, The Grand Tour, The Survival of St. Joan, and Jesus Christ Superstar. David entered the world as an only child. At age 3, while David's father Willis served in World War II, his mother, Veda, made the decision to place him in a foster care home, a move to pursue a more financially advantageous marriage. Her plan did succeed within approximately 2 years. After getting married to Elbry Miller, an executive with Howard Johnson's, Veda reclaimed her son. The family relocated to Miller's pristine design Miami Beach residence, a mid-century modern showcase featuring luxurious carpeting and vibrant pastel decor that neighboring residents would nickname the House of Tomorrow. Despite the opulent surroundings, David's youth was marked by profound unhappiness. He found himself disturbed by his parents' chaotic lifestyle. In his published memories, he describes scenes of intoxicated guests at parties impulsively diving from balconies into the swimming pool while fully dressed. Meanwhile, young David, dressed formally in a navy suit with a red bow tie, was sometimes tasked with mixing gin slings as a child bartender. Art eventually became David's guiding passion and defining force. After completing high school in 1959, he took employment at a Pittsburgh steel mill to fund his studies at Carnegie, as his stepfather refused financial support for what he considered a worthless degree. During his first Thanksgiving break, tragedy struck when David and a friend's vehicle careened off the road. Regaining consciousness, David discovered people lifting the car off of him. The accident fractured his pelvis, tailbone, and 2 neck vertebrae, necessitating months of rehabilitation in a Pennsylvania hospital. Now, his parents visited him, but just once. Later in 1961, David would discover his deceased mother beside a vodka bottle and sleeping pills. The accident aftermath left David in a very painkiller dependency and depression. I was angry, just very angry, he confessed to Poster Child magazine. Upon returning to art school, he subsisted on just water and Wonder Bread. By 1980, despite professional success in New York, David's issues expanded to include heroin and opium. I didn't recognize my lack of control then, he admitted. Seeking a fresh start, he relocated to Los Angeles for work on Van Halen's Fair Warning Tour, a band he never heard of. He departed New York with only his toothbrush, portfolio, and his entire net worth, $548. Though David secured other California commissions, including Kiss band portraits, his New York reputation and artistic approach didn't immediately resonate on the West Coast. He accepted modest assignments, illustrating insurance advertisements, and packaging instructions, including directions on how to heat an egg roll. At first, David hated Los Angeles, but everything changed in late 1981 when he met Giulino Becerra, a young mosaic artist. With him, he found a newfound appreciation for the city and life itself. Their bond endured, and after decades together, they married in 2013, ultimately sharing 43 years as partners. David's career took on a pivotal turn in 1991 when he was brought on to build an in-house creative service department at Warner Brothers. For the next 11 years, he lent his vision to a wide range of projects, designing everything from Looney Tunes stamps for the U.S. Postal Service to the popular TV show Friends merchandise and style guides for the early Harry Potter films. David thrived in his work. Reflecting on his time at Warner Brothers, he told Be Incandescent magazine that it was the best education he had ever received, more intense and inspiring than art school. Immersed in hands-on artwork for 8 to 10 hours a day, he was constantly surrounded by other artists and mastering computer illustration software for the very first time. Now, some might have dismissed the job as trivial, but not David. He said someone could be stuck up about it and say, "Why did you love it? You were drawing Tweety Bird." But as David would tell me, what's not to love? I get to paint all day. Even after leaving Warner Brothers, David never stopped creating. As Becerra recalled, he kept busy with freelance gigs, but he also poured his talent into pro bono projects, designing posters for charity events, struggling small theaters, and t-shirts for animal rescues. Making art wasn't just his job, it was his refuge. When he could just get lost in the work, he was happy. What saved him always was getting out of his own head, creating. Well, what can we learn from this story? What's the takeaway? I came across a notable quote from Edward Byrd that I think summarizes his life. And I quote, "Unfortunately, I gave so many posters away like a drunken sailor. To me, they were disposable items. You just did it for this moment, and who knew that 50 years later, you would rule the day that you gave them all away, or only saved 5. That's just the way I was. I didn't plan for the future. I didn't expect to live this long. Good God." End quote. Well, there you go, my friends. That's life, I swear. For further information regarding the material covered in this episode, I invite you to visit my website, which you can find on Apple Podcasts for show notes and the episode transcript. As always, I thank you for the privilege of you listening and your interest. Be sure to subscribe here or wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss an episode. And we'll see you soon.